Alright guys, so in today's video, we're going to be testing out the EcoFlow Wave 2 portable air conditioner slash heat pump. Now, before we get started on this, I want to make a couple things very clear. Number one, this is not a sponsored video. Number two, they did not send this to me for free. I'm not connected to EcoFlow in any way. I paid the full $1,200 that this thing costs. Because whenever I do this review, I'm skeptical about this thing, and if it sucks, I want to be able to tell you that it sucks. So, now that that's out of the way, I guess right off the bat, my first complaint about this thing is that it is $1,200. Now, this is sold as a portable air conditioner. So you know, the unit itself is portable. You can buy, there's a battery that attaches to the bottom of this to make it truly portable so that you can, run it on battery power. The unit is $1,200. If you want the battery that goes with that, that's another $700. So if you want a portable air conditioner, you're right at $2,000 deep in a portable air conditioner. To me, that seems crazy. You have a situation where you need that makes sense. The entire reason that I decided that I wanted to test this was I was browsing through their website, and there was something that caught my eye. So they claim, the specs on this thing, they claim that it has 5,100 BTUs of cooling capacity and 6,100 BTUs of heating capacity. But here's the kicker. This only pulls 500 watts on max, 500 watts on max heat. Because today it's wintertime, so we're only focused on the heating capabilities of this thing. Maybe I'll do another video where we test out the cooling capacity. They claim 6,100 BTUs of heat. I'm not a math whiz, but if you take a 1,500 watt space heater, okay, there are 3.41 BTUs of heat per watt of electricity. So if you have a 1,500 watt space heater, that puts out 5,100 BTUs of heat, right? So they're claiming to have 1,000 more BTUs of heat than that, but only use 1/3 of the electricity. I don't know about you, but to me, that math just doesn't quite add up. Now, I know that it's a heat pump, and heat pumps are more efficient than a resistant type heater. To put out more heat at 1/3 of the electricity, I'm just not buying it. So that's why we're doing the test today. All right, so let's just go over the unit, and I'll show you some things that I like and some things I don't like. So the first thing that I like, right here. So I told you this thing has a battery that you can sit on. You have a lot of options here. I can't really see which one I'm touching, but I think this one is the power port where you plug in a regular AC power cord, which is what I'm going to use. And then I think here you have the port for a solar panel, so that if you did have the battery here, you could charge it with a solar panel. That's very nice. And then you have your special, I don't even know what it's called, but some special adapter that you would use to connect the battery underneath to the unit itself. If anyone who's ever had a portable air conditioner, just like a typical one, usually they sit on the floor and then they have one hose that sticks out the window. I have one of those, you'll see it. But those units are extremely inefficient because they only have one hose that goes out the window, and that hose blows air outside, which causes a vacuum inside the room. So you're trying to cool the air, but you're also causing a vacuum, pulling in more hot air. So those units are extremely inefficient. This one has a few different options. So you have these plates. One goes there. And one goes there. And you have these tubes. So with this unit, you have 2 tubes, not just one. So this way, you are pulling in air from the outside, and then exhausting air outside. So you're not causing any pressure issues. You're not causing a vacuum, anything like that. That I love, because that should bump up the efficiency quite a bit. And these tubes are also very long. So you can put this thing in a good ways away from whatever window or whatever you want to cool. For the space that you're conditioning, room air gets sucked in here and then gets blown out here. So you get to gain some more efficiency by recirculating the exact same air. The other thing that I like is that you have some versatility. So you can set it up this way where you have the unit inside of the space that you were conditioning, and then you can have the hose running to the outside, or you can have it reversed where you put the unit, because like on the website they show this like for heat, I guess heating or cooling like a tent. So you can have the unit itself outside, and then you have another piece. Let's see if we can get this on. Yeah. So then you have this piece, and then you can take this hose. So then you have the whole unit outside, and you can have this hose just pointed into, whatever, room or whatever space you are conditioning. So you have a lot of versatility, which I like. None of that means anything if it doesn't really work that well. What I'm going to do is, this thing is rated for up to 107 square feet. I have a room in the house that is 115 square feet. We're going to put it in there, and we're going to let this run on max heat for 1 hour and see how much it brings up the temperature of the room. And then we're going to use a 1500 watt space heater, let it run for 1 hour, and see how much it brings up the temperature of the room. If the claims are true, if it does have 1000 BTUs more of heating capacity, this thing should make the room way hotter than a space heater. So let's get to testing. All right, here's my super jank setup. I have everything fixated on the wall. Got it all sealed off. We have our timer. We have our temperature. So we are going to be starting off at, 57.6 degrees. Is going to be our starting point for this. We'll turn this on. Turn on our timer. Yeah, you can see here our temperature 59 degrees. 58.1, so pretty close. We have set everything on max. 86 is the max it will go to. So we're gonna come back in 30 minutes and see where we're at. Timer went off. I went ahead and let it run for the full hour. This thing just conveniently went into defrost mode, so that's great. So I want you to take a guess. How hot do you think it made this room in 1 hour? Because I can tell you what, most of you probably aren't gonna guess it. So we started off at 57.6, I believe, or maybe 56.7. Now, an hour later, we are at 56.1. Imagine that. We have this thing cranked up, maximum heat for an hour, and it got colder in here. I'm honestly speechless. I don't even know what to say. The only conclusion that I can kind of come up with is that maybe it's too cold outside, since it is a heat pump, and heat pumps do lose efficiency as it gets colder. But it's only 20 degrees outside, so that's that's cold, but that's not like incredibly cold. That's a normal winter temperature. So if 20 degrees is too cold, that means that this thing probably isn't going to produce any decent amount of heat until what? 50, 55 degrees maybe? At a temperature where you almost don't even need heat? So this thing cannot produce heat at the temperatures in which you need the heat. That's actually extremely convenient of EcoFlow to do that. It's like a practical joke that's pretty funny. Here's your $1,200 heater, but we're not gonna produce any heat. We're not gonna allow it to produce any heat for you. We're just gonna make everything colder. I'm actually gonna kick this back on so I can show you what it's doing. Okay, so now it's putting out heat. The ambient temperature, well, it was sitting on the floor, but 56 degrees ambient temperature. It is putting out air that is it is putting out air that is 60 degrees. So that's I think that's about as hot as it gets. We're up to 63 degrees. I think 64. Yeah, 64. So if you're trying to heat a space, then look at that. I think it just went back into defrost mode. So I think this is what it's been doing just on repeat over and over. Like it'll put out like 63 degree air for 5-6 minutes, defrost mode. 63 degree air, 5-6 minutes, defrost mode. I think it's maybe just a little bit too cold for the heat pump, which is, in my opinion, pretty pathetic because it's only 20 degrees. So it shouldn't completely lose all function at 20 degrees because, for instance, I have a heat pump that heats my garage, and right now that heat pump is putting out 120 degree air in the exact same temperature. So that's pathetic. So we're gonna do a little experiment here. I disconnected the intake hose on the back. So now the unit is pulling in room air and then pushing it back out to the outdoors through this hose. So now we're set up kind of like a normal portable air conditioner would be, or a portable heat pump would be. So we are pulling a vacuum on this room now. So that is going to be inefficient. But in this specific situation, I'm curious if doing that would be more efficient than pulling in the cold air from outside. Because since I've disconnected that hose and now we're dealing with room air, not cold outside air, this is now putting out... see, now we're putting out 77 degree air. And it just kicked up quite a bit, actually. Oh, now we're up to 81 degree air, now that we're not pulling in the outside cold air. Let's run this for an hour, see where we're at. We are... I think this is a little bit low where I set it on the floor, but this now says 54 degrees. But we'll see where we're at in an hour. So that made a massive improvement. It's now been another hour. We're now at 65 degrees. 65, up to 65 in an hour isn't incredible. I think the space heater is going to do more than that. But here's the huge change. We were at like 63 degree air temperature max. Now we are at, I mean, look at that. 122 degree air temperature. That's a huge difference. Massive change in the air temperature that's coming out of here by far offsets the amount of vacuum that we're pulling where we're sucking in cold air. I don't know what the magic temperature is, but whenever it's below a certain temperature, whatever that magical temperature is, you have to disconnect the back hose and just let it circulate room air in order to heat it up. I'm not super impressed. I wish it worked this well with both hoses out the window the way that it is designed. At least you can, when it's really cold, at least you can get this thing to produce heat and heat up a room. Also, just realized I forgot to mention, so 122 degree air coming out, and then we're only pulling 573 watts. I don't know that this is 6,100 BTUs of heat, but I do know that this is a good amount of heat for a low amount of electricity. So I guess we'll see, we'll be able to get a better judge of the heating capacity whenever we run the space heater. So now time for the space heater. I've let everything cool down. I've been trying to get it back down to 57 so that it is exactly fair, but 59 is what we got. So we're gonna be at 59. Got our space heater, 1500 watts. See you in an hour. So after 1 hour, we are sitting at 72 degrees. 72.3 degrees, actually. That is no surprise. And so that was a true 5,100 BTUs of heat getting dumped into this room over the course of an hour. So seeing the large difference tells me that we didn't even get close to 6,100 BTUs out of this thing. If I had to guess, we probably got, I don't know, maybe 3,000 BTUs out of it or something. In reality, we got like basically 0 BTUs with both of the hoses connected, and with one of them disconnected, we got maybe 3,000 BTUs or something, maybe. Overall, I'm pretty disappointed. All right, so it's been a couple days. It's now, the outside temperature is now 41 degrees rather than 20. So we're gonna give it a try again, see if we can get this thing to work properly and actually produce heat with both hoses going outside, and see if everything works right. Our starting temperature is 65.1. Put it on max. All right, everything's on max. We'll come back in an hour. All right, so here we are an hour later, and we started off 65. After an hour, we are at 69. I mean, that's better, but that's still not 6,100 BTUs. We're getting much better heat output also. We're sitting at about 104 degree air output, which sounds like a lot. If you put your hand just more than 6 inches, like a foot away maybe, it doesn't even really feel that warm. It's just kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like a lukewarm at best, which I think is why we only got, 4 degrees. With the space heater, we got, I think, 10 degrees in an hour. So we got less than half of the heat, but we're supposed to have 1,000 more BTUs. Oh, and also, this is another thing I want to do. So we're running this on max. This is absolutely maxed out as much heat as this thing can possibly put out. So one thing that they say whenever you have the battery pack, they say that they claim that it runs for 8 hours, but it only runs for 8 hours if you run it on eco mode. So I want to put it on eco mode and then see what kind of air temperature we get. So we're getting 104 air. Let's let this sit for about 10 minutes or so, equalized. So I decided, surprised, it wasn't 10 minutes. I decided to go ahead and leave it for another hour on eco mode. I have the temperature set to 86, but it's on eco mode. So eco mode, regular heating mode, which this isn't entirely true, but I'll get to that in a minute. We're only pulling 213 watts, 214 watts. And then we're running 1/3 the fan speed. And our air temperature is only 89. That's not great. But then, more importantly, after an hour of running, we went back to our original temperature of 65. So with eco mode running, we're effectively not heating anything. We're just kind of running. And it's kind of later in the day, so as the temperature continues to drop outside, I would assume that if I keep running this, then the temperature inside the room would also keep dropping, meaning this thing would be doing absolutely nothing. So that's also kind of another letdown. I don't know, it just doesn't really make that much sense to me. So we're pulling 200 watts right now, right? On max, we're supposed to pull 500 watts. So let's turn it back up to max. I noticed this yesterday and then just forgot to mention it. So what I noticed is it's supposed to pull 500 watts. We have it on max heat mode, and it only pulls 300 watts, 317. And it only does this whenever it's pulling in cold air from the outside. It's like it restricts it and it won't allow it to pull the full 500 watts. But I'm going to disconnect that back hose again like I did before, so it pulls in room air instead of outside air, and then it will shoot right back up to 500 watts, which is odd. Okay, now we're pulling room air. As soon as we start pulling room air, we're all the way up to 340. I'd say this is probably going to keep climbing all the way to 500. Slowly climbing up here. 367, 369, 370. And then as it pulls in more warm room air, it's just going to continue to climb all the way up to 500 watts. Which is odd because, now I'm not a genius or anything, but you would think that in a situation where it needed more power to produce more heat, such as when the air is cold, it would pull more watts. But it's the opposite. It uses less energy and produces less heat. But then whenever the air is warmer, it uses more energy and produces more heat. Up to 400. I don't know what causes that. It's just something very strange that I found. All right, so my final thoughts on this thing. Overall, I'm just disappointed. Like I suspected in the beginning of this video, for them to claim 6,100 BTUs of heat out of this thing is a far stretch from the truth. The only thing that I can imagine is that whenever they tested the heat output of this thing, they must have tested it with an ambient temperature like at 60 degrees or higher or something. With an outside temperature of like 40 to probably 50 degrees, you're going to get some heat, but it's not going to be very much. And then anything probably below 40 or 45 degrees, I mean, forget about it. You're just going to get nothing. The first test, we were at like 20 degrees, absolutely not even 1 ounce of heat. And another thing that you have to consider is whenever I was doing this test, the space that I was trying to heat was already semi-heated anyway. Like in the last test, it was already 65 degrees in there. So, and we had a 40 degree outside temperature. So I can't even imagine, say if you were trying to heat up like a car or something, if the ambient temperature outside was 40 degrees, the inside of the space that you're trying to heat was also 40 degrees. Say that you were using a battery pack, like the whole design of this thing is supposed to be mobile and be on battery power. I don't know that you would ever be able to heat that space. And especially if you're running on battery, you'd have to run it on max to have any hope of getting any heat. And then if you're running it on max, at least from the videos that I've seen, the battery only lasts about 2.5 hours. You're not really going to get that much. Now, this is all obviously just one side of this unit, the heating side. The air conditioning side could be a completely different animal, and it could be amazing. I will be doing a retest video in the summertime with the air conditioning side of this, and see how that works. As far as heating is concerned, for $1,200, I'm disappointed. If I bought this thing to use in a mobile application to heat a space, and I paid $1,200 for this, and then $700 for the battery, and then that was the type of heat output that I got, I'd be pretty upset. I'm interested to see what you guys think about this in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one.